Well, welcome to another Python coding program. Today we're looking at Monopoly using Python, not including Pygame. So this is a bit unique. Unlike every other solution I've posted, we have 4 files worth of Python program to go through. So we're going to go through those in this video and in the next video, and the end of this video we'll also be doing a few kind of test simulations to show how it works. So let's get into it. So what we have here is the file player, which contains class player. This contains every bit of information that I need to take a person playing the game and give them all their information, such as their money, the net worth, the location they are currently at, as well as how many rails or utilities they have, how many turns they've been in jail, what their status is, if they're active, if they're in jail, or if they're retired and therefore out of the game, as well as their turtle, which will allow me to draw the character when I need to. On top of that, we have their name and their property list, which tells us what properties they own and their name. The property list here is a list of locations, which is this class. This class is location under file location. And this will store and does store every single bit of information about the locations within the map of Monopoly. So when I say locations, I mean buyable properties. We don't care about chance or community chest or jail or anything like that. We only care about ones that you can buy, sell, get rent, mortgage, get renovations on, that sort of thing. So we give them a cost, the renovation cost, the mortgage value, the mortgage cost, the different rent values they can have. The owner is false when it's not owned, and it has a name when it is owned. Mortgage status is set false initially, but when you mortgage it, it's set true. The house count is your renovation. This is how the game will know how to change your rent whenever you do renovate. And then it'll tell you the property type, because we have different types of properties in Monopoly. This class location is a superclass, as we have 2 subclasses of location. So, because there are 3 types of locations, you have properties, you have railroads, and you have utilities. Railroads and utilities behave nearly identically aside from how their rent is generated. So for railroad, it's based on the get rail value within the player. And for utility, another subclass of location, the rent is based on the number of get utils the player has. And so we could set the rent value based on that. There is one more class aside from, or one more file aside from the main file, that would be the Monopoly class, or class Monopoly. This class will contain, and does contain, functions that allow me to create the board, that allow me to reset any scoreboards, any margins, any information the player is using, as well as the renovation and unmortgage functions. So see, we have a function here that will create the board. Here we have the functions to clear the margin and rewrite the margin. This is all the property information that you will see in bright lime green on the right side and center of the screen when you run the code. We have the scoreboard and clear scoreboard. Scoreboard is just the bright blue in the center of the screen that allows you to see what information about what players are playing, such as their name, the amount of get out of jail free cards, their money, their net worth. Below that we have the mortgage. This is used to mortgage any properties the player has until their net worth and money can get above 0. More into how this will be used to calculate, but basically we only enter the mortgage if we have to. We don't enter it otherwise. So effectively, if the player has a positive net worth and a negative money, that means they're in debt, but they can get out by mortgaging properties. So we will mortgage until they have positive money. Then later on, they can come back and unmortgage them. Here's Here's the defined renovation, which will allow a player who has a monopoly on property, a color of properties particularly, to add houses to a maximum of 5, with the fifth counting as what you would call the hotel in a normal standard board game. There's also a helper function known as Boolean, which just tells me which monopolies the player does or doesn't have. Finally, we have function for unmortgaging any properties the player has mortgaged. Pretty much this is just the undo of the function I showed earlier, except you don't have to check for player money, they just need to have the money to unmortgage. In total, between these three files, there is approximately 26 to 2700 lines of code. Between all 4 files, however, there is approximately 94,300 lines of code. And this is file monopoly with main function. And see, here we're going to start by creating the board, setting up arrays for all that, creating our property array objects, getting the player count and getting all of their names, and then calling the margin scoreboard functions, and then beginning the loop. This loop will continue until the retired player is equal to 1 less than the player count, meaning there is 1 player who is not retired. Every single time a player who has retired, we add 1 to the counter. So here we start with player 1, and it will allow him to roll the dice, find his location. We go to it, and we execute some code. Executing the code depends on what happens, so such as, say, with Mediterranean Ad. If you landed on Med Ave, then we're going to check if you own it. If you do, nothing will happen. If you don't own it, but someone else does own it, meaning right here it's not false, and it's not mortgaged, then you're going to get taxed, you're going to get rented, you have to pay rent. So this block of code here is to pay rent. Otherwise, no one owns it and you're able to buy it, of course, assuming you have the money and you choose yes. And as you can see, writing 8 players worth of code took a while, and then at the end of every player's full turn, there was a jail sequence. Effectively, if you were in jail or you got doubles a couple times, you have to roll to get out. That ends up being your turn. So as you can see here on the main call, we have 91,365 lines of code within this file here. So go ahead and run this then. As you can see here, it created the board. We have to alt escape this because Turtle is a bit buggy with how it activates for some finicky reason. If you are moving or resizing a window while Turtle is running, when it ends, it will crash. So we enter the number of players, and let's just put my dog's names in for now. So Kronos, Apollo, Ares. As you can see, they all appeared down here. The whole margin shows up. Scoreboard shows up, and you can play the game. That's all we're going to be doing in this video. In the next part, we will be playing the game. So stay tuned. Thank you.